I have my own car at that time, and again, we pick her, get up, and then we went to see the movie Gigo, and we went to get a cup of coffee, and then I asked her the personal question
Okay,
about
what is the personal question?
that's so important because I liked her, but I wouldn't date her unless she would answer yes. And I said, "Do you like animals?" And she says, "Oh yes, I love animals. I had a dog, I have a cat, I had a chicken that the dog ate its rear end out, and I had a rat." And I told that kid, "That's fine." And then I said good night to her. I don't think I even kissed her, and we said good night. And I said, "Well, then, since you like animals, and this is another very interesting thing," I said, "Why don't we go to the zoo next Sunday?" And
You
and
are
then
so creative.
and then and plus I said, and then we'll go to my parents' house for dinner. Okay. I didn't tell her at the time that my parents were on their way back. They weren't home. They were on their way back from Phoenix, Arizona. I didn't tell her that, but I fixed so I
You
picked her
went
up.
to the zoo?
We went to the zoo, and then I the whole night before I fixed up. I had a fantastic Italian recipe that you cook overnight for spaghetti, and so we get to my house, and she said, "Where's your parents?" I said, "Well, they're coming back from Arizona," and I had candles and everything set up, oh, really pretty. And we sit down to eat, and I hear a knock on the door. Some friend of mine who I hadn't seen in years was coming over, so I invited him to stay for dinner with us. And then about an hour later, my mother calls. They came in town, and they were at my sister's house. So I had to tell them that my mother's name is Mary. My girlfriend's name is Mary, but it's Merry. Otherwise, my mother would not let me date her because they had the Bubomaisa from Jewishness that you can't have the same name of a mother with a daughter. So luckily, her name is Merry. So and then my mother thought because her name was Merry that she was a shiksa, that she wasn't Jewish. And then, but I didn't tell her her last name. So when we got over to my sister's house, um, I introduced her to Mary, and
Wait,
and
wait, wait,
say her
wait. This whole date that you arranged, cooking,
uh
putting
yeah,
candles, was actually ruined by this guy that is knocking on the door and needs a place to stay, and your mom and dad are coming at the same
yeah.
time.
It's all wonderful. It was so wonderful. I didn't think it was bad. It was the most wonderful thing, just
But you
being with
wanted
her.
time with her.
I know, but it was wonderful being with her and my family because they fell in love with her as I did immediately. Um, but we, um, but so they thought that she was a shiksa. So now we get over there, and I introduced her again as Mary Sazne. They say Sazne. Her uncle was my family's only friend that had a tuxedo, and so when they got married, he was in there. He was her uncle was one of the people that was at their wedding. So then they knew her, and they knew her family as well, which was nice. But they fell in love. Everybody fell in love with her immediately. And then 6 weeks later, 7 weeks later, I proposed to her, and
What?
she
Seven
and
weeks later.
and she said yes, but she said, well, we can't get engaged until her dad was a soldier. He was a professional soldier, and he was in Germany at the time. And she she said, we can't get married until you meet my parents. So we went out and picked out a ring, and then uh, we waited, and her parents came. That was in April. That was in May, and her parents came back in July from Germany. And so I got to meet her her father and her mother. We were going up until that time. We were going to her grandmother's house, who was really a kosher, and we would go there every Friday night for Friday services. And then when her parents came, it was on a Friday. We went over to their house, and for the services, and and I came up to her father and her mother, and they came there, and I walked and I shook hands I shook hands with her father, and gave her mother a hug, and then we didn't say anything. Then I said, Mary, why don't you come with me? I have to go get something at the drugstore. So we went outside, and at the time I had a Buick convertible, and I also had cold sores. So so there's a medication you put on your cold sore, and I usually kept it in the ashtray of the car. And so I said to her, "Go get me my medication. I think I'm getting a cold sore." And she went in there, and there was the ring. So, so she said, "But you said you'd wait until you met him." I said, "I met him." That's it. I didn't ask her father for her hand or anything. And she said, "Oh, no, you can't do." I said, "Put the ring on." And she put it on. And then we went in the house. Well, this time I came in the house and showed it to her. She showed the ring to her mother, and her mother gave her a big hug and gave me a hug. And then I shook hands with her father, and he went like this. Maybe you can see my hand. Let's see. He went like this. He grabbed my fingers like this, and he went like that. And he says, "Mary, get in the car." And he wanted to be alone with her. He didn't want to, he didn't hug me. He didn't say anything. He said, "Get in the car." And they went to her aunt's house. So then I drove over there. And when I got there, she had already explained to him our relationship. And he came up to me and he hugged me. And we were good friends from then on.